Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I'm your host, Alex Harriman, here today with my co-host, Kelly Sarlo. We're two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness, and we hope you enjoyed today's episode.
How are you?
Hey, Kelly. Good. Jinx, double jinx, no jinx backs.
That's going to be an awkward podcast then. Just Alex's monologue.
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. What's new in your world?
Nothing. Just enjoying summer in general and little getting out, doing lots of little things and day trips and things like that. It's been awesome. But one thing that we're trying to do almost every day is go for a walk as a family. And a topic that came up on the walk today was how insane people are that can work out without headphones.
Tell me how insane we are.
So Devin, my wife Devin, she's good friends with Kelly for anybody listening that doesn't know. And they worked out at the gym one day and Devin was shocked that Kelly doesn't wear headphones. And so she was like, ask that on your podcast. Who wears headphones and who doesn't wear headphones? So I'm curious for anybody listening, let us know. Do you wear your headphones or you not wear your headphones? I definitely love having headphones when I'm working out at a public gym. If I'm at home, I don't really care as much, but in a public environment, I need it. Just like I hate the distractions in the public environment. Even going for a run or anything outside of my home space, I want headphones on.
That's neat because you're making me think about like the different scenarios in which I do want or need them. And in some cases I can't, or I don't, like in a public setting where there's music playing in a gym, like it's just sensory overload. I can't put more on top of what's already existing.
Yeah, but have you tried noise canceling headphones?
I have not, because I am so self-conscious that I won't be able to like regulate myself or be aware that I'm not regulating myself, that I'm like, no, I got to be tuned into my environment.
I find it's like the first time I tried noise canceling headphones probably 2 years ago now, and it's like shocking. Like you're unaware that there is music. You can't hear anything. You can't even hear your footsteps. It's like it's such a weird feeling. That's a bit strange if you're going for a run or something like that, because I feel like it'd be very easy to be hit by a car.
Fair. And see, I would need them for a run because I think that would just be like torture. I'd be like, well, I should have some distraction from this horrible thing I'm doing.
Awesome. So that was it. That's what I want to hear from you guys listening. Do you wear headphones or not? And do you think it's crazy if somebody doesn't wear headphones for their workout?
Do you think this was just a backwards way of getting on to call me insane?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
of course it was. Yeah, that's what I do this podcast for, really.
Okay, perfect.
What do you got for a topic today?
Okay, so I went back into our archive of topics. We've talked about this before, but not in full, because we've sort of developed this over time, and that is our guiding principles for Breaking 90 Fitness.
Cool.
So you've grown these over the years. We've got a solid 5 that we refer to with our members. It's not, I don't know, it's secret sauce, but it's not a secret, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So I wanted to be able to share this with people because I think this is definitely high value information, not just for health and fitness, but for life in general. So I thought,
Agreed.
let's talk about that today.
Agreed. And I love having 5. So if we start to think of another one, I might have to eliminate one.
Oh, interesting. Okay, well then that'll be my question at the end, is which one would you eliminate?
Okay. So first of all, why do we have guiding principles? We have guiding principles to use as a filter in our decisions, which is important. It's when we think of new concepts, ideas, or should I do this or should I not do this, to have a set of guiding principles makes that an easier process for you. It makes it an easier process for us as a company. So I think everybody should have some guiding principles in their life, and every business owner should have some guiding principles in their business, because it definitely keeps emotions out of your decision.
Mm-hmm.
which I think is important.
Yeah.
Okay, where do you want to start?
Oh, I didn't have an order, but do you want to start with your favorite?
That's really hard. I've got different favorites for different reasons. So, one of my original strength and conditioning like heroes and inspirations, Jim Wendler, created this. Well, I think he created it. It's the first I heard of it. The discipline over motivation.
Mhm.
And I've taken that on and adopted that as one of Breaking 90's guiding principles. I really like that because I've always loved his messaging, his programming, his beliefs as a strength and conditioning coach. And I love where that one stems from because of that history and kind of nostalgia for me. But I think maybe like my favorite just on a personal base is maybe something over nothing.
Oh,
Um, what about you? What's your favorite before we
mm,
dive into any of them?
yep. I just wrote them down so I wouldn't miss any of them. I think I would probably agree with you about something over nothing. And probably because when I consider something over nothing, that actually feeds into discipline, right? Over motivation.
Oh yeah, they all kind of go hand in hand, right?
Mhm.
Okay, let's start with something over nothing. I think this one alone, if people adopted this one alone, so many lives could be changed.
Yeah, 100%.
It's the idea that it all circles back to that all or nothing mindset, which we talk about constantly, where people feel like they need to get it perfect or do everything. um and when they fail to do everything or do what they considered perfect, they fall back to zero, and there's that whole world between zero and what you consider perfect that are still better than zero. So something is always better than nothing. This can apply to any aspect of your health and fitness journey. It doesn't need to just be exercise, although we see it, I would say, the most often in the exercise, but maybe not even. um get out there and get that 5-minute walk when you don't have time for 20. Like it's that freaking simple. And when you sit down and you really think about it, you're like, yeah, of course a 5-minute walk is better than not doing any walk. But it's human nature to be like, I don't have time for my normal 5K loop that I do today, so I guess I won't do anything.
Mhm. Yeah, or I won't go to the stop sign and back. And
Yeah.
I, talking about nutrition too, it's like, oh, well, I already kind of started the day off with a, takeout breakfast and a fast food lunch that was maybe catered at work or something. So what does it matter? And it's like, well, some healthy meal in your day at dinner or your snack is better than not and just throwing the whole thing away.
Yeah. Yeah. I this is a complete side note, but a friend of mine is an ex-Olympic athlete, and he's still very regiment in all aspects of his health and fitness journey, like way above and beyond 99% of the world. And he hasn't competed in many years. But one thing he does that's really interesting is he eats many times a day. Um for that sole reason that you just described there. He has like 8 scheduled meals per day. And so if he decides for dinner, like he's gonna have a takeout dinner or something, he's limited because he's already had like 5 meals leading up to that, and he knows he's going to fit in another 1 or 2 after that. So he might have like a little bit of takeout, but he's not going to go crazy. And then it's right back on track because he has his scheduled meals. So not all 8 of his are always perfect, but he sticks to his plan consistently and never has a day where it's just like, oh, screw it, this day's a write-off because of this meal. Like if he has a crazy breakfast, he is going to eat his next 6 or 7 meals perfect.
Neat. That's cool.
And that's a complete exception. Like obviously most people aren't going to live their lives that way, but it just reminded me of that when you said that.
Mm, I love that. I take it into life all the time too, right? Because I think health and fitness, all the principles that apply here are going to make every other aspect of your life that much better. And I think about, connections and relationships a lot because that's what life is all about. If you don't have time for a whole date, showing some kind of affection or enthusiasm towards the people that you love, the people that matter in your life. Something is better than, not showing up at all.
Saving a little bit of money each month if you can't save a lot of money.
Yeah.
Reading a little bit of your book each day if you can't read your entire book.
Yeah. Doing one class instead of a whole roster, of classes through a semester. Something is always going to be better than nothing.
Yeah. Agreed. And that can be sent both directions. So like obviously a little bit of reading is better than no reading, but on the flip side, on an unhealthy habit, well, limiting myself a little bit is better than not completely, right?
Yes.
So it obviously it can be taken in both directions, but the concept still applies.
Yeah, I love that. Next.
We'll go to discipline over motivation because we've already touched on it. So this one's really important to me because we aren't always motivated. We're not designed to always be motivated. And if we were, then a new standard would be established of what felt motivated and what didn't anyways. So there has to be periods of high motivation and low motivation so that there is a difference and you can feel what motivation feels like. If it was always consistent, you wouldn't feel motivated anymore. That would just be your normal, right? And so we have, it's like taking the good with the bad. It's part of it, right? And so I think it's important we jump on those periods of high motivation, and often they play with the time of year or schedule change, like January or September when the kids go back to school. Ride that wave, kick ass for that month, but be prepared for the fact that the motivation won't be there in another 2, 4, 6 weeks from that point. And that's normal. That's everybody. Nobody's constantly motivated. So then we need to start creating the discipline, the habits, the routine, the schedule that's going to back us up when things get tough. Doesn't mean you're going to kick ass in October or kick ass in February, but you're going to keep working a little bit at a time towards that goal. Back to that something over nothing. We're going to keep doing something to move forward. And we're going to keep building those habits so that the next time motivation comes around, we haven't made a massive regression and we're not restarting our journey.
I love that. I also want to add to, just for the individuals who feel constantly frustrated that motivation hasn't come back around in years. We are living in a time, in a society, most of you who will be listening, with so many options. We are inundated, right? With choice all day long. Tons of opportunity for distractions, tons of opportunities for opportunities. I know that sounds a little odd. But I think sometimes it's not necessarily that motivation isn't there. It's that overwhelm is actually hanging over everything, if that makes sense. And so when we don't know how to prioritize, when we don't know how to filter, like we're trying to do with these guiding principles, then we can allow overwhelm to set in and we call it low or no motivation. And discipline counterbalances or counteracts that.
That's awesome. Have you heard the saying action alleviates anxiety?
Yes.
Yeah, so I love that saying because it's so true. When you have that massive to-do list staring at you and you're like, how the hell am I going to get all 20 of these things done? Well, you're going to start chipping away and it's going to feel good when you start chipping away. And that's kind of circling back to what you just said, right? We don't feel motivated, but the truth is motivation almost always comes after action. There's certain times a year like January and September where you might just get a random spurt of motivation, but if you don't take action, it's going to fizzle out. Most of the time though, the motivation follows you taking those initial steps. You go do that first workout class, you feel awesome, you want to continue feeling that way. That's where the motivation comes from. But then as that workout class becomes a normal part of your life, the motivation and the excitement to it are going to start to dip. And that's where we need discipline to kick in.
Yeah. And it draws on to the different kinds of motivation. And I think people call it one word and think it's one thing. And what can occur in the beginning is that you might, let's say in a January or a September type of time, you might see someone who is fit, someone who is disciplined, and you're like, you know what? I want that for myself. And the stars have somehow aligned where you have the energy, the time, and the desire for it all at once, right? And then, like you said, kind of 2 months roll around. Maybe you've been taking classes, you've been showing up, and there's a little bit less of the internal motivation and more of the, I don't want to disappoint the instructor who knows my name. and knows where I stand in class, right? And so the motivation actually, or the source of it, shifts. So it's not necessarily that you have lost it, it's that it's coming from a different source and you're acting on it maybe for different reasons. And I think that concept is really cool to play with as well.
Yeah, agreed. And all in all, just being aware of all of this, where my motivation's coming from, and also the fact that my motivation's not always going to be there. I like people to ride the wave. If you're motivated, ride the wave, but just understand it's not going to be there, and you're going to be so much better prepared.
Yeah. And I know we've touched on this in a couple different episodes, but I just want to reiterate it if this is people's first introduction to these kinds of principles, is that when you build discipline, oftentimes we wrap our identity in the kinds of disciplines that we've created. So when motivation is low, but you've already built in the identity that I am a morning person, I'm a morning gym person, I am, I'm a runner, let's say, then even when motivation is low, that I am story, that identity story that you're telling yourself sometimes can override the low or no motivation because it's your story. And you carry that out with discipline, which is pretty cool, but powerful in the opposite too, if you're not building out what those stories look like and mean to you.
Agreed. The last thing I'll add here is that often on those days of low motivation, doing something back to that something over nothing holds that place for you, which is so important. Like we've talked about, if you normally exercise for an hour every morning, you have one of those mornings where you're not feeling it, really not into it, even doing something for 5 or 10 minutes holds that habit in that place, and that's part of building that discipline. Right. We have to put in the work to create those habits and schedules and routines. And that's part of creating discipline.
Cool. So can I lead us into the third?
Yeah.
Okay. I would like to squeeze purpose over pleasure into the middle because I think sometimes it leaves a lackluster feeling when we end with it, and we often end with it.
Okay.
Because the other two are really like punchy.
Okay. I think any of these 5 can be misconstrued, but
True.
especially this one. It's the idea of purpose over pleasure is that we believe in balance. First of all, Breaking 90 is all about balance, and so there's room in your life for purpose, there's room in your life for pleasure. It doesn't need to be an all or nothing, but we need to run decisions through these filters so that we can be consciously present and aware of what we are deciding to do, right? If we leave things up to chance, we're going to fail, that's for sure. So if we run it through our filters and we say, yeah, I'm doing this for pleasure, that's fine if you're aware of it and you're okay with that decision afterwards. I'm not telling you not to do things for pleasure, but we should be aware of it and we should consciously be saying, yes, I'm choosing to do this for pleasure. So that's how I want to start this. But the idea of purpose over pleasure is that maybe 80-20, if you want to put a percentage to it, it doesn't need to. Should be 80% of the time we should be making choices for purpose when it comes to our health and fitness, and probably other areas of our life, but we're going to talk health and fitness. We should be making 80% of our decisions for purpose. That doesn't mean we're making 80% of our decisions are going to be perfect or right in line with our goals, but they have purpose. And that's like, so if we look at it from a nutrition standpoint, purpose a lot of the time is eating to fuel our body, eating to feel good for our workouts, eating to make sure that we're hitting our goals or our macronutrients. But sometimes purpose is you're eating something because it's part of a family event, a big important family event, like Christmas dinner, for example. It doesn't need to be that, but every Christmas your family has this, and it's a really important part of your life, right? You don't want to break that. That has purpose to it because you enjoy it. It's part of what you and your people do, and you want to continue doing that, and you want to build it into your journey. That has a purpose to it. But sitting on the couch mindlessly eating chips for no reason doesn't have a purpose to it. That is now entirely for pleasure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so these are both sides of this result in us eating something that isn't in line with our goals, perhaps, One of them has a purpose, one of them doesn't. One of them's entirely for pleasure. And so if we can start to balance that and have that 80-20, where most of the time we're making choices for purpose, most of the time we're eliminating choices that are just pleasure based, it's going to help us get closer to our goals. And that's just from a nutrition example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like that. And I know you said this one can be misconstrued a lot. When we're talking about pleasure being a purpose, right? Like those Christmas events or a wedding or something like that. That's one thing. When we say purpose versus pleasure on the other side, we're talking more about that like sloth intent or that gluttonous intent that doesn't actually contribute to what you want to achieve if you want to separate those two things.
Right. That's great. Yeah. You go to your family event where every year you guys have this special pie that is really meaningful, and you all do it because grandma makes it, and you guys are going to continue to make it long after grandma. That's important. You can have a sliver of that pie, enjoy it, be part of the event, feel great that you partake. Or you could eat half the pie, feel like a piece of shit after, and it's still not gonna it's still, you still had the pie, you still participated. So one of these, the purpose was we had some, we participated, we felt good with our decisions, we didn't go crazy. The other end was pleasure. I kept eating and eating and eating until I felt terrible, just because it was grandma's special baking, right?
Love it. That's a great one.
I want to flip it around. Just one thing Coach Jared often talks about is on the movement side. Is an example for you guys. Am I sitting on this couch resting because my body needs rest and recovery, purpose? Or am I sitting on this couch resting because I'm being lazy and I just don't want to move, pleasure? Right. Just as another example, how you can take this guiding principle.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, you've got your pick from two more.
We'll go simple over complex.
Sure.
Simplicity over complexity. I never really know how to say that one. It never sounds fluid, but that's the idea behind it. I don't know if simplicity over complexity or simple over complex feels better.
It's okay. They get the gist.
Yeah. So this one is that we always overcomplicate things. We make things way harder than they need to be, and we're trying to avoid that. We try to avoid that in our business decisions. We try to avoid that in our health and fitness decisions. We try to avoid that in life. If there is an easier, simpler way to do this, we should be doing it. There's no reason to make things harder than they need to be. Often we have clients come to us and be like, hey, I'm really struggling to not drink any wine this week. And it's like, okay, why did you choose not to drink any wine this week? Well, I just want to speed things up. Okay, but we never told you not to drink wine. Right? Like if you have a reason you want to cut out wine, that's great. We could talk about that. We can make a goal around it. But if you just feel like, oh, this is a better decision to get me to my goals faster, you're setting yourself up to eventually burn out and fail, because you're making rules and you're making something more complex than it needs to be. If we want to lose weight, we need a calorie deficit. If your only goal is to lose weight, if we're not even talking about any other health and fitness factors, if we're not talking about what the body composition is going to be, if I just want to lose a pound and I don't care where that pound comes from, I need to give up 3,500 calories. Where that 3,500 calories comes from wouldn't matter if my only goal was to lose a pound. So keep it simple. Okay, I need to cut 500 calories a day for the next 7 days. I lose 1 pound. Doesn't mean you have to now make that more complicated by setting all these rules. I have to do this. I have to do this. I cannot do this. And I cannot do this. Same outcome, right? Obviously, as we get deeper and deeper into this, if you want to put on muscle, lose fat specifically, become more athletic, there's other factors we have to take into play, and your coach will help you with that, or yourself. If you're doing your own research, you can help yourself with that, but don't make these things harder than they need to be.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about too, it really forces, and I'm using that word on purpose, it forces people to go through a process, right? Because even in your example, you're talking about, I want to speed up. I want to speed things up, which means I want to skip steps. So I'm going to add in a bunch of things that I need to do. I'm going to complicate things, right? In order to get somewhere faster, however that looks. And simplicity asks you to just focus on one or two things at a time, so that we can see, is it working? Is it having the effect that we want it to? And once that's built in and through discipline, right? So bringing in another guiding principle, then we can start to add more things as we know the process is working. But complicating everything right at once, you don't really know what's actually having the effect. And we see this in the medical community, right? There's a certain point, if you've got complications going on with your body and you've had so many different treatments thrown at you, they will often take you off of everything, give you water, and monitor, right? Because they're trying to simplify the process itself and then just figure things out from there. And I just think that's so important to remember about life in general and health and fitness.
Even in your journey, it's if you have a goal to lose fat, to lose weight, to get healthier, and we break it down to the simplest terms. You need to start, if you want to lose weight, you need to start eating less and moving more, right?
Easy.
So now we start to build off of that. Okay, I need to eat more fruits, vegetables, protein. I need to eat 4 meals a day. I need to go to the gym and do 3 days of strength training and 2 days of cardio. They are all still building off of eat less, move more.
Mhm.
So break it down to the simplest version of what it is to start. Okay, I need to eat a little bit less. That's it. I'm going to start by eating a little bit less, and I'm going to start by moving a little bit more. So I'll eat one less portion at dinner time, and I will start moving for 5 extra minutes a day. That is, start that habit, build off of that habit until you see what comes from it, and then we can grow on that as needed.
Mhm.
That's what we're getting at when we tell you to make it simple. Often when a client starts with us, we have them walking in the beginning. We have them doing anything they enjoy in the beginning rather than giving them a workout, because I could give you a really good workout. If you hate doing it, you're not going to put your heart and your soul and your passion into it. You're not really going to get great results if you're grudgingly going through it and you hate the process. So I'd rather you just doing something you enjoy, like walking or paddle boarding,
Mhm.
in the beginning, if we're getting results. And if we're getting results, then we're happy. We're keeping it simple. If the results stop, then we look at what the next step looks like.
Mhm. I love that. Consistency.
Consistency over intensity. This one might be the most important.
I love that it's the last because I feel like this is a huge takeaway.
Yeah. I think in the beginning you asked me my favorite.
Yeah,
Did you?
I did.
Yeah, I think this one might be the most important.
Okay.
I don't know if it's my favorite, but I think it's maybe the most important.
Well, people are at least listening now.
So consistency is key. We've all heard the saying, consistency is key. And this could not apply more to health and fitness. The actions that we do now, we need to do them consistently in order for them to work. If we, and this so goes hand in hand with something over nothing and discipline over motivation. Actually, this one goes hand in hand with everything. But if we try to speed the process up, we're slowing the process down, because
Yes.
we speed the process up until the point that we fail or we fall off and we regress, which has actually slowed you down from getting there. So this is the tortoise and the hare, right?
Mhm.
The tortoise who picks easy, sustainable goals and sticks to them over a long period of time will get there eventually. And for most of you on your health and fitness journey, this isn't a race. You don't have an end date. The day you die is your end date. We're continuing to move forward until the day we die.
Mhm.
And so we want to make small, consistent changes that we can do until we can no longer do them. Whereas if we sprint now and we get a month in, we're like, Jesus, this is hard. This is uprooting my entire life. I can't freaking stand this.
Yep.
And you fall off, what have you accomplished? But this is how everybody approaches health and fitness. At least one point in your life, everybody has done this. They've
Mhm.
tried to fix everything. They've tried to do everything at 100%. And it was probably in one of those periods of high motivation that we talked about, or January or September, or when you just got that burst of motivation and you couldn't stick to it anymore.
Yeah.
And this isn't to say the dial can't go up and down. You can push yourself harder and less hard, and you absolutely should. If you're motivated, things are going well, your schedule opens up, and you have the ability, you should push yourself harder. But you have to be prepared to dial it back before you burn out, which can be hard to do on your own when you're looking at your own journey and you're letting your own emotions get in the way.
Yeah. And one way that I like to talk about it, especially as the mindset coach, is consistency builds trust, right? And so what you're doing in the health and fitness journey is you're trying to build trust with your body. So as you start to make these changes, maybe you're right at the very beginning, your body is basically standing back and being like, okay, how long is she going to keep this up? Right? How long can we trust that she's going to have this input? And we're going to see if it kind of falls off, right? That's why we don't see results potentially right away. It's the same thing with investing. I love that you brought up that example earlier. Okay, if you're going to invest a certain amount, how long are you actually going to keep it up before you decide, no, I can't do this anymore, right? Did you go too hard and choose intensity first, and now you're pulling investments out before you see a return on investment, right? Same thing with relationships. You start dating, you have an input into that or investment into that relationship. How long is this person going to be actually consistent before I start to see different habits and behaviors come out? Consistency builds trust between our bodies, between other people, between anything that we're trying to create for a foundation in our life. And intensity is not going to be the thing that builds trust.
Yeah, it's important to realize that your body doesn't want to change too. Like your body's goal is to stay the exact same. It doesn't want to get sick. It doesn't want to get fat. It doesn't want to get skinny. It wants to stay the exact same as it is now. That is your body's norm, and it's trying to maintain that. So, quickly pushing it outside that norm is hard. It's really hard, and it's a shock to your system. Consistently making small changes outside of that norm allows your body to adjust and create a new norm.
Yep. And I'm still going to go back to trust that, okay, this is how we operate. This is how we do things. This is what I can expect, right? No one wants to wake up in the morning, if you think about life, and not know what they can expect at all out of life, right? So when you're feeding yourself, when you are moving yourself in ways that are consistent, your body feels this ability to sink in to life, right? And trust that it knows it can get through its day.
Love it. Love it.
Well, I could talk about these all day.
Okay, which one would you get rid of then if you had to?
That's a really great question. Oh, that's hard. I don't know that I would. Can we just keep 5?
Yeah, we could keep 5, but what if a 6 comes along that we love?
Well, I think we would amalgamate 2, right?
Yeah, true.
So something over nothing amalgamated with discipline over motivation, I think would be my choice.
Okay.
But that's a business conversation.
Cool.
All right, cool. You want to leave us with a tip?
Yeah, my tip is this is actually a great topic for it. So my tip is to add something to what you're doing. Basically, the simplest version to get started on your health and fitness journey is to increase your total movement by 5 to 10%. And so for most people, that's a step count, but it doesn't need to be, because a lot of people like swimming and cycling and things like that too. So I say movement in general. It's easy to measure a step count. If we look at your average step count and you're doing 5,000 steps a day right now, go up to 5,500 steps a day and just see how that, until you can create that as your new norm. So say 2 weeks at least before you decide to increase that again. But that doesn't need to be just a step count. Like I said, it could be your total movement. You can measure that in minutes. You can measure that with your fitness tracker. Make those small 5 to 10% increases every week or two as your body adjusts, and it will be way easier for your body to get used to it. It will be way easier to fit it into your normal routines and habits and schedule. And it will be consistent. You'll be able to stick to this long run.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening. I hope you enjoyed those. I'm curious to hear, I posted in our free group, which one of these is the one that you struggle with the most. And I'd love to just have that chat with you guys. So if you're interested in doing that, shoot me a message.
Beautiful.
All right. Thanks for being here. Make sure you rate, comment, leave a review wherever you're listening.